today Foreigner hits are considered classic rock, so-called, but when you were actually creating them, how did you guys characterize them at the time? I doubt you sat at the mixing board, listening to playbacks and going, another timeless classic,
No, I mean it was as current as could be. I mean, this was still at the end of a period where disco and disco like songs had been dominating the airwaves for easily 10 years, and with groups like Boston and Cheap Trick and the Cars. We together with the production and the songwriting kind of brought rock and roll back into the public's eye.
And God bless you for doing that. Because like I said, I lived in New York from 76 to 78. So when Saturday Night Fever came out, I was at ground zero. I lived in Queens. My dad worked a block from the World Trade Center. And, that was what was up. And anything that happened, including the Son of Sam and the bad stuff. But, from the summer of 76 to the summer of 78, New York City was my life. And so, yeah, when Saturday Night Fever blew up, I went and saw the movie. I thought it was okay. And I thought the Bee Gees were good writers and everything. But yeah, I was going to buy a Foreigner album way before I was going to buy a Bee Gees album. And so, yeah, speaking of, on the strength of Hot Blooded, Double Vision, and Blue Morning, Blue Day, your second album actually outsold your first. So you guys proved you had staying power. You weren't just a fluke. Like the first one sold 4 million, the second one sold 5 million. So guys were on a tear. As far as your third album, Head Games, I have kind of a dubious personal connection to the title track because that was the song that was playing on the car radio when I got my first speeding ticket.
Oh my goodness.
So to this day, I associate that song with motorcycle cops and radar guns. Because I was like 16, I didn't know if things were possible. I was probably going 80 and a 30. I deserved it. But
no, they would have made you get out of the car and taken that license away. I think.
Yeah, it wasn't that. But I was cranking Foreigner flying down the road. I was happy to be out of school. It was just down the street from my high school, so I'm sure
cool.
they were sitting there thinking, all right, well, all these young high school kids with brand new driver's licenses are going to be ripping down this road. And frankly, it was 4 lanes. It was 2 in each way. I wasn't putting anybody in any danger.
You're driving now and you hear Head Games. Do you slow down automatically?
I kind of do. I turn it off. I don't even want to take a chance of slowing. And it's not the only song that does that. Highway Star by Deep Purple will do that.
Oh yeah.
There is a whole set of them, so I have to be careful. But yeah, that's my association. Now you guys ran into some trouble, reminiscent of Spinal Tap's "Smell the Glove" fiasco when we came up with an album cover that you guys meant as a joke, but it ended up offending a certain segment of the population. Basically the cover showed a young girl in a boy's bathroom wiping her phone number off the wall. Which seemed like a comic situation to you guys, but due to her sort of underage appearance, there was a backlash, and it didn't help that the first single off the album was called "Dirty White Boy."
Dirty White Boy. Yep.
Which, by the way, I always imagined that you could have had the perfect business card. All it would say on it was Lou Gramm, "Dirty White Boy."
Boy, we got the double whammy for the album cover and then the first single. I remember seeing on the evening news that there were cities in the Bible Belt that were holding Foreigner album bonfires.
Yeah. Well, there again, you had problems with one segment, those type of people, the album burners, but you probably even sort of gained more credibility with the rockers. So there you go. It's always a trade-off, and we need to make the point that the Dirty White Boy you were thinking of was Elvis Presley. Is that right?
Well, yeah, someone like that. That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. But see, people don't want to see past what their initial impulses are. It's just, which sucks because, as a result of all that, the sales of Head Games, they were respectable, but they were significantly lower than the previous two.
Yes, they were.
But so you decided to make some changes that included downsizing from 6 members to 4. While technically your next one was your 4th album, the main reason it was called 4 is because that's how many band members were left.
Correct.
Reminds me of the Genesis album, and then there were 3. It's also a reference to downsizing.
Right.
So for Foreigner 4, you guys brought in some session players like a saxophonist Junior Walker and a keyboard wizard Thomas Dolby. And on the strength of songs like Urgent, Nightlife, Jukebox Hero, and Waiting for a Girl Like You, Foreigner 4 was a massive success. In fact, it was the top-selling album of 1981 in the United States. So history proved you made the right decision by shaking things up and reconfiguring the band. Even though you'd only released 4 albums, you're already able to put out a greatest hits compilation. And you and the label both agreed that rather than worrying about producing another album, it'd be better to focus on touring and riding that wave of success. So it was like a good 3 years before your fifth album, Agent Provocateur, came out, and you started to butt heads with Mick because he wanted to focus more on ballads. You wanted to focus on the rockers. In fairness to him, I Want to Know What Love Is did become the band's first #1 song. But in fairness to you, it also created the impression that maybe like Chicago, maybe you guys were going to go soft and abandon your roots.
Daniel, you know where that showed up the most? In our live shows. All those roughneck kids and the ones shaking their fist when we're rocking, they were missing on that tour,
Yeah. So Foreigner 4 comes out, and then it's the Waiting for a Girl Like You audience, and the fist shaking rockers are kind of like turned off.
Well, Foreigner 4, they were still there because of Urgent and Jukebox Hero, but I think Waiting for a Girl was the last. I think it was the last single on the album, if I'm not mistaken, and then the first single on the next album was another ballad, I Want to Know What Love Is.
Yeah, so those are the decisions you have to make. You have to weigh commerciality versus, the heart and soul of the band. And, I can see why you guys would disagree. I can see it from both sides, but it sounded like he started to get maybe a little bit greedy about royalties. He wanted to downplay your writing contributions. In fact, on the next album, Inside Information, he didn't really even solicit any creative contributions from you. He just kind of treated you like a hired singer. But what happened resulted...
That was my... You know what, Daniel? Excuse me. That was my choice.
Okay.
Because by Inside Information, he was playing very little guitar and concentrating on synthesizer sounds that he liked to be the main instrument in the songs.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, this band resembles nothing of the Foreigner that I became a part of back in '76.
Yeah.
And I pretty much decided voluntarily not to be a part of the writing or anything. I did have some writing credits, but it was going through the motions, and even I don't want to live without you. You know that song?
Yeah.
I think it was the next. I don't think it was on the same album as I Want to Know What Love Is.
I'm not as familiar with the later, because I, like the people you're talking about, I drifted away when that stuff started to happen. Where's my Double Vision and my Hot Blooded? I was one of those guys. Yeah.
Well, so that vocal on that particular song was a rough. It was a slight nod to Dean Martin, and I was just messing around. And when I got done, Mick was jumping up and down in the control room, and he's going, "That's it. That's how I want it." And I'm thinking to myself, "You are out of your mind."
Well, it's inevitable when these things happen. Of course, the good news is that this situation motivated you to produce your first solo album, Ready or Not, in 1987. Which afforded you the chance to work with some of your Black Sheep buddies again, and your brothers, and even your dad pitched in on the trumpet. But best of all, that album produced a #1 hit, Midnight Blue, topped the charts for 5 weeks. And considering that was a song you'd offered to Foreigner, but, Mick had more or less rejected it, did you feel somewhat vindicated by that confirmation of your talent?
Big time.
Yeah, I'll bet. And critics liked your solo album, because I think the critics were with you in the sense they appreciated, you're wanting to escape from Foreigner's increasingly overcrafted sound, I think you called it in the book. Your opinion is as important as anyone else's, and especially because you're the face and the voice of the band. But, how did you feel about having a chance to do a solo album and have a little more control and have it turn out so well?
I did feel a sense of vindication, and that I was not just Mick's co-writer, that I actually could do something on my own without him.
Well, it doesn't seem like he really appreciated how much, like, what your contribution to Foreigner was, how much the fans loved you, and how much they wanted, you to do what you do best. But, it's not the first story of a band drifting into different camps. But, you further expanded your solo career with a song for the Lost Boys soundtrack called Lost in the Shadows. And, I found your comments in the book illuminating about the rise of MTV, because when the network launched in 1981, you'd already done the first 4 Foreigner albums. So as successful as they were, none of those ever benefited from the mass exposure MTV was affording artists throughout the 80s. So
our first video was I Want to Know What Love Is.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought of that because, I started listening to music, and I was born in '63. So MTV came out August 1st, 1981, which was my 18th birthday. So I would say, my adult life and MTV started, on the same day. But, I go, yeah, there weren't videos for those earlier Foreigner songs. And I think that makes your success all the more impressive. You guys did it with touring and radio play, and you had an infectious sound. I mean, people were drawn to the sound. It was, people recognized quality. And like you said, it was a nice, blowback. People who maybe didn't want to be out on the disco dance floors, like, hey, you don't have to go back to 67 or 8 for rock and roll. We're still making it here in the late 70s.
Right.
You also made a good point that as the videos evolved and got more complex, you had to be really careful not to allow directors to take too strong a role in shaping the image of your band, because I can't help thinking about poor Billy Squier, whose career was pretty much sunk by bad choreography. One bad decision in terms of his image, and he hasn't lived it down to this day.
Sure gave an impression that crippled him, I think.
Also, Peter Frampton, he was the biggest thing in the world in the mid-'70s, and somebody talked him into doing sort of an androgynous kind of photo shoot where he had makeup on and looked kind of feminine, and like 3/4 of his audience was like, no thank you, and that's just like one picture, like on the cover.
When he had Sgt. Pepper's
that didn't help. That didn't help either. And then the cool thing about Frampton is, I think, because of all that, because he got so big, and then now he's just kind of, he plays great guitar, which he always did, sings. And I think he's kind of in a comfort zone,
Yep. I liked Frampton when he was in Humble Pie.
Oh yeah, a lot of people did. Yeah, he.
Yep, because his style of guitar playing, musically made that band very special, and he got 1 or 2 songs to sing on every album too.
You're right. That was awesome. And he was just another aside. He was on The Simpsons one time, and he was really funny. They should do a sitcom or a reality show with Frampton. I think it would be cool. But returning to the Lou Gramm story, in 1989, you released another excellent solo album called Long Hard Look. And then in 1990, you officially left Foreigner. And, they tried to release an album without you, but the fans weren't having that. It was a commercial failure. And instead of doing a third solo album, you formed a band called Shadow King with guitarist Vivian Campbell. That's a really sweet album. I really like that.
Thanks. And we were on Atlantic Records, and we had their blessing, and we worked very hard on that album. Keith Olsen produced it, and the songs I thought were very strong, and the production was excellent, and we were ready to tour. And the album, when it came out, was buried. No help from the promotion department, nothing. And I think it was collusion with other certain people that made that album not even make any noise. The only place it made noise was on the album radio charts.
I know that kind of thing happens, and it sucks, and it's BS, and jealousy.
It was a shame. Yeah. That band played one live show. Mm-hmm. We played one live show in London, and because we all could see what was going on, Viv accepted the job into Def Leppard.
Yeah, I remember that too. Well, you said the album didn't make any noise. Why don't we make some noise right now? Tell me your favorite song on that album, and we'll play it.
I like Once Upon a Time.
You lose to get what you need. You do what you have to do. Now count your blessings, count your tears. Some killing time, some killing years. Talk big, laugh loud, you better back it up. It's the bottom of the river in the bottom of your cup now. Living life in this tenement town, he'll tear you up, it's gonna drag you down. You've been there once, you don't wanna go back. It's all been a lie, the world don't work that way. Hey, somebody something to lie. The world don't work that way. Hey, somebody's knocking, just taking what I need, and that ain't no crime. Hey, hey, somebody's knocking. I've been down before, won't see me climb. No way. Hey, somebody's knocking. You can take what's yours, what's mine is mine. Hey, hey, somebody's knocking somewhere down the line. Once upon a time, you can't go home again. You walk this world alone again. Ain't no life in this tenement town. He'll tear you up, he's gonna drag you down. You've been there once, you don't wanna go